Okay, so like I said, we got a new memo last week, late Tuesday night, Wednesday night, I don't know. It's a Q&A covering, what they did was they took Q&As that had been issued throughout this whole time of COVID that they have put out, and they took those questions. I think they added a couple, which is great, but they took those questions and made them pertain to what the school year is going to look like. So the memo is SP 16-2021, and Kendra, go ahead and advance the slide and I'll go ahead and start. I know we get into the memo, but again, we get a lot of questions in the chat and we get a lot of repeated questions in the chat, and it's understandable. We want you guys to have as much information and correct information as possible. So if you'll at least listen through the call and then maybe your questions answered, and we always go to the chat at the end and we go completely through it and we get all the questions answered, and we want you guys to have the most current information. So just maybe keep that in mind, because your question again might be answered as we progress through this very long Q&A memo. It's 22 pages and 52 questions, so bear with us. There's a few for childcare that don't pertain, so I will be skipping those though. So okay, next slide. Okay, just as a reminder, the CARS system, the claim application and review system for 2022 is available. You need to remember to insert a new application before your 2022 will pop down in the drop-down box at the top. So if you have any questions with that, please feel free to reach out to us. We can help you with that. If you're operating SSO in July, which some of you are, fill out the application quickly, because you won't be able to file a claim until that is complete and approved. We will also be doing a virtual walkthrough with you all on how to complete the renewal application on July 23rd. That's this Friday at 9. I think that's right. Is that Friday? The summer is blowing by. Yes, Friday at 9. And again, CARS continued. If you plan to operate SSO, you do still have to complete the entire application renewal, including the NSLP part, because we need that information to roll from year to year. And so if we were to leave anything blank this year, it wouldn't roll to next year. So that will still all have to be completed. No, keep in mind that on-site reviews for multi-sided SFAs will still be required to be completed by February 1st. And that is all of your lunch sites have to be done and half of your breakfast sites have to be done. That's not changing this year. And then your SSO monitoring forms also must still be completed, because we're operating SSO too for your claiming sites, I should say. Okay, next slide. And the emergency purchasing and procurement, we are well aware of some challenges you guys are having. We're hearing about them. We did virtual SNA last week also and heard a lot, Dana and I did, heard a lot about it on the call or on the virtual meetings for SNA. So, and we're also hearing that a lot of companies aren't necessarily doing line item bids. They're not returning bids. And that could be a problem, or that is a problem. It is a problem, because what those bids do is they help tie down into a price and an amount that you'll need for the coming year. And without that, there's going to be some price differences there. And so there is an emergency purchasing procurement reg, and it's on the slide. It's 2 CFR 200.320 little c3 about non-competitive procurement. So we always want you to procure your services. That's required. But in a time like this where you're not getting bids back, you have the ability to just go with, if you don't get bids back, go with who you need to go with to get your product. Again, you're going to have a pricing issue because they're not going to maybe hold to that price. The other thing is there's a state contract that's out there and available, and there's also Campus Smart. That's an option too. In our manual, child nutrition manual that is online, in the procurement section under state contract, there is information about the state contract. And then the Campus Smart information, you can reach out to Dan Lindsay at Edmond Public Schools. That might be an option for you all to look into. Again, I just want to put options out there for you. We do realize there's this issue. And again, the milk issue we've known about for a while. Highland's not going to be able to provide the amount of fat-free chocolate that you all need, so they can produce a letter stating that. We also, I'm going to reach out to them. I meant to do it by now. We've been busy up here, just like you guys are out in the school districts. I'm going to get a letter from them too, so we have that for our records. I have a couple emails with that information, but I'm going to go ahead and get a letter. So you'll need to go ahead and get that information and keep it on site for your records as well. And next slide. And then, so the emergency funding, which was going to be some additional funding that you'll get, and it's comparing your 19 to your 20 reimbursement. That's still in the works. We have not abandoned that. It's still going on. We just resubmitted, we submitted our plan back in May. They just kicked it back to us a couple weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, I think, for a couple corrections and clarification. And we did that, and it is now back in their hands. So we're fingers crossed that we get this approval. And once we get that approval, we don't even have the money yet. Let's just put it that way. So I couldn't pay anything out if I wanted to. We don't have the money, but once we get a plan of approval, then apparently the next step is they send us the money is what they do. They send us the money. And we will, in the meantime, be working on getting some letters out to you all who will be receiving this funding, letting you know the amount. And that's, I need to go back to my slide because I'm getting off track. Once approval is received, we will send letters letting schools know their amounts. And if an additional assurance is needed, it will be in that letter and you'll need to return that to us. Again, if you are not due any funds because your 20 wasn't less than your 19, you won't get a letter. So there's no timeline on when we will start issuing funds. It will be approval, and once we get the funds, and then we will get those sent out just as quickly as possible. We do have a timeline it has to be paid within, and it's regulatory, so we will definitely meet that timeline. After the funds are received, the SFA will need to complete a very, very short survey on how those funds were spent. It's not going to come immediately after you're paid, but we will put together a little survey monkey with a few questions. And we, again, the reason for that is we have to report everything we do back to USDA. So we're going to do that in a survey monkey type survey so that we can track that for USDA and be able to give them the information they need on how these emergency funds were used within the district and within our child care facilities. Okay, Sfsp will discontinue once your school year begins in the fall. So school's starting soon. Some of you are starting in very early August, some mid to late August. But whenever school starts, you need to move over to the SSO. You will claim and serve all meals free under SSO for this coming school year once your school year starts, and you'll be reimbursed at the summer feeding rate, if you remember that from our last call. Okay. All right, and so we will get started on the Q&A that we got on July 14th. And it is SP 16-2021. And basically, like I said at the beginning of the call, they took all the Q&As, pretty much all the Q&As from during the COVID time that they had issued, and they focused to answer them based on what the new school year will look like for 21-22. I still have some questions based on this. I didn't get information back from USDA before this call, so I'll let you know when those come up in the memo, and that we're still getting we still need some questions answered, but we were glad to get this. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to try not to fully read to you, but there are some parts that I will plan on reading just so that I don't fumble it up while I'm talking. So the first, and like I said, this is 22 pages long and it's 52 questions, but some of them won't apply necessarily to you all. It's specific to child care centers. So we'll skip some of those, a couple of those in there. So, okay, so the first question is just generally covering what the maximum number of program meals and snacks that can be claimed for federal reimbursement each day during the school year of 2021. And what it does is it lists the program. So for example, it says school breakfast program, up to 1 breakfast per child per day. That's all, and you guys know that. And then same for national school lunch. And it goes down after school snack, national school lunch seamless summer option, up to 2 meals, 1 meal and 1 snack per child per day, and any combination except lunch and supper. And that'll come out a couple times during this memo, but that's just clarifying what that is. It also goes on to say that some program operators participate in multiple programs. For example, under typical circumstances in one day, a program operator may serve a breakfast through the school breakfast program, lunch through the National School Lunch, and supper and snack through Cacfp at risk. Under the waivers, a child may still participate in more than one program, but in no circumstances shall a child receive more than the number of meals allowed in each program for which they are eligible. Operators must also ensure children do not receive duplicates of the same meal. That's been the same in this entire COVID process. The number of meals they can receive, nothing has wavered on that. Excuse me. Question 2. Okay, can child nutrition program operators that have received a loan through the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, made available through the Small Business Administration and qualified lending partners use child nutrition program funds received from the state CNP federal funds to pay back a PPP loan? I believe this really does pertain more to our child care centers. They received some PPP loans. Your district may have, I don't know, but there's specific answers in here to whether the loan's forgiven or if the loan is not forgiven and how to handle that. We would handle these on a case-by-case basis, so I'm not going to bog the conversation down with that right now, but that is addressed in here. If that's a question you have or need assistance with, please let us know. And then section 2, number 3 goes into school meal programs. Can SFAs operate closed enrolled sites and limit enrollment to their own students? And yes, you can. While FNS encourages SFAs to serve the community during normal operations, FNS recognizes that due to unique operational challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, SFAs operating SSO during the regular school year may decide to operate closed enrolled sites that limit participation to only students enrolled at the school site. Regulations 7 CFR 225.14 d2 specify that summer school sites must be open to enrolled children and children residing in the area served by the site. However, this requirement is specific to summer school sessions and does not apply to schools operating SSO during the regular school year of COVID-19. So what this is basically saying is if you as a district choose to feed just your enrolled kids this school year, you're allowed to do that. And you would apply for SSO as a closed enrolled site. And then that's all you're only going to feed your enrolled students. If you want to apply for SSO this school year as an open site, you can do that, which means you can continue to feed siblings of the kids that are enrolled and students that maybe it's a virtual student, a kid, not a district virtual student, but a student that attends a full virtual district such as an EPIC, or I think it's called K-12 or something. There's several of them out there. I'm not pointing anyone out, but you could also continue to feed those students. It is a district decision how you want to run that program. Again, you can still feed your district virtual students as well. They are enrolled in your district. So if you wanted to be a closed enrolled site and feed your virtual kids that are enrolled in your district's virtual program, you could do that. So it's something that you all need to decide individually at your district. It's a local district decision. If you have questions, you can always reach out to us here, your child nutrition consultant as well, if you aren't sure what would be best, or I would talk with your administration and then you guys make that decision and we can go from there too. So it's an option. We've been asked that a couple times and we finally got clarification on it. May schools operating SSO during the school year sell a la carte food items and beverages? Yes, you've been able to do that. You were able to do that last year. Schools operating SSO during the school year under COVID-19 waiver number 85, which is to allow seamless summer through the school year 21-22, which there's a typo I just found, I'll be darned, may sell a la carte foods and beverages as long as they continue to meet the competitive food smart snack requirements. So you still have to meet the guidelines. Foods and beverages sold in competition with reimbursable meals on the school campus during the school day must meet the competitive food standards described at 7 CFR 210.11, regardless of whether the school is operating the National School Lunch, School Breakfast, or SSO, and that is Reg 7 CFR 210.11 b3. for the purpose of competitive food standards. The school campus means all areas of the property under the jurisdiction of the school that are accessible to students during the school day per 7 CFR 210.11 little a4. And the school day means the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day, 7 CFR 210.11 little a5. Those are the same as they've always been since they implemented Smart Snack stuff. So you have to follow that at all times. Okay, number 5, can residential childcare institutions, which are RCCIs is what we call them, operate SSO under the nationwide waiver to allow seamless summer option through school year 21-22? And the answer is yes, just like you all are, but that pertains to residential districts. Residential childcare institutions, not districts, sorry. Offer versus serve is designed for congregate meal situations. How would offer versus serve be adapted for non-congregate SSO settings? When using offer versus serve in a non-congregate setting, SFA should consider the unique service situations of each site, as well as each site's ability to follow appropriate safety measures. All required meal components of food items must be offered, and all participants must have the opportunity to select a reimbursable meal. FNS encourages SFAs that wish to use offer versus serve to think creatively about how to implement this flexibility while ensuring that all meal service parameters are met. So kind of like this entire time with COVID-19, if you've been doing grab and go meals, you had to serve everything. And that's what we're going to continue. So if you're going to serve your virtual district kids in a grab and go setting, implementing the waivers of non-congregate meal service time and possibly parent pickup, they will need to receive everything. There's not a surefire way to ensure that offer versus serve can be implemented the way it is intended to be implemented by a grab and go setting. Now the kiddos that are coming through the line and are in person and coming into the cafeteria and eating, you can implement offer versus serve for them if you choose to. You don't have to, and normally I would say you don't have to except for the high school, but there is that waiver this year also that the high school kids, you can serve them everything and not have to implement offer versus serve if you'd like to as well. Number 7, may a state approve an SFA to operate SSO at some schools and operate national school lunch, school breakfast at others? And the answer is yes. There's no federal requirement that SFAs must operate only one program in all schools within the SFA. So if you are looking to do that, we definitely need to know that as well. So I'm not sure why a district would choose to do that, but there might be a reason. But please reach out to us if that's something that you think you might be doing potentially. Number 8, if a school's schedule or shortened school week, for example, have classes on Monday and Thursday and have Fridays off to clean the building, may they provide meals for the student to take home for Friday through the National School Lunch, School Breakfast program? It depends, so I will read on. Schools may not provide meals on off days under the National School Lunch, School Breakfast program if they operate under a shortened week. For example, where one day of the week is not a day of operation, and that's in quotes, that includes instruction per 7 CFR 210.7 little c. However, if students are given work to do at home on the off day and the school considers it an instructional day, meals may be offered if the state has elected to use the flexibility of the non-congregate waiver, the mealtime waiver, and or the parent guardian pickup waiver. As a reminder, meals may be offered through the Cacfp at-risk after-school meal program during the school year on days when schools are not in session, which would also require a virtual educational or enrichment activity, and you must be approved to do that. May students pick up meals at any school within a school food authority, or are they required to pick up meals only at the school they attend? And this would be in a situation where there's virtual learning at your district going on. SFAs that implement the nationwide waiver to allow non-congregate meal service in school year 21-22, which is waiver number 87, may permit students to pick up meals at any school within the SFA. SFAs that have elected to implement the parent pickup waiver, number 89, may permit parents and guardians to pick up meals for their children at any school within the SFA. SFAs may provide meals to students enrolled in schools outside the SFA only if they have an agreement with the student's SFA to share eligibility information. And one of the questions I have on this is to USDA, and I do not have an answer back, is the eligibility information. If all meals are being served for free, what eligibility information are you collecting? I don't have an answer to that. And that's would of course be if you're an open site that would be going on. So that's something I'm waiting on clarification from USDA on as well. Excuse me. Number 10, are schools required to provide potable water to students eating lunch at school when lunch is served in the classroom? The answer to that is yes. Schools are generally required to make potable water available to students during meal service times where meals are served, including the classroom, and the reg is 7 CFR 210.10 little a 1 little I. Although lunch is not typically served in the classroom due to COVID-19, many schools are considering serving lunch in the classroom to accommodate social distancing for this school year. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when lunch is served in the classroom, the potable water requirement does apply. So please keep that in mind if you're serving meals in the classroom. Potable water must be available. Are schools required to provide potable water to students eating breakfast at school when breakfast is served in the classroom? No. Consistent with the school breakfast regulations for potable water at 7 CFR 220.8 little a1, while water must be made available when breakfast is served in the cafeteria, schools are not required to make water available when breakfast is served outside of the cafeteria. Schools are encouraged to make potable water available in all meals service locations as safety permits. Number 12, are schools required to provide potable water to students who are learning virtually due to COVID-19 and who are not eating lunch at school? No. So if you're serving your virtual students that attend your district virtual and you're doing grab and go, you do not have to make potable water available. The requirement that makes schools make potable water available to students where lunch is served during the meal service assumes that lunch will be consumed on site. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when lunch is consumed outside of the school, provided via meal delivery, picked up by parents or guardians, students would not be able to consume the potable water at the on-site location, even if it were offered. Accordingly, the potable water requirement does not apply. As noted above, the requirement to provide potable water with the school breakfast only applies when breakfast is served in the cafeteria, and it gives a reg citation. Can schools operating under the nationwide waiver to allow non-congregate meal service in school year 21-22 through SSO deliver meals directly to students' homes? And yes, you may. It goes into great detail on what you're required to do over the next several questions regarding meal delivery. I'm gonna, instead of reading these, I'm going to just say this. If you all are considering doing meal delivery to homes for next school year, I would like you to reach out to us and we will walk through that process with you and what it looks like, because it also, throughout the next several questions, this pertains to delivery of meals. It talks about having a plan and working with the state agencies. So I think that that's going to be fairly limited at this point. So we're going to take that on a case-by-case basis. So please reach out to us if you're looking at delivering meals to homes next year or when the school year starts. It also goes into question 14, goes into what's required for doing home delivery. So again, lots of information there that we would need to go over with you and work out your process and how you're going to do that. It does ask, the next question is number 15. Do the home delivered meals need to be shelf stable? And the answer is no. But then another question goes on to say, if you're doing home delivery, do the families need to be there? And while it says no, it states, but the meals would need to be shelf stable if you're leaving them out front. So there's lots to work through with meal delivery. So please reach out to us and we can work through that together and get everybody on the right track. I'm on question 17. If a household has children in multiple schools, can the schools coordinate to provide one home delivery for all children in the household? And again, this is meal delivery, so this would be part of the process we'd work through, but the answer to that is yes. And again, we would work through that with you all if that's something you're looking at doing. Is there additional funding available for meal delivery? No, there's not. There's no additional reimbursement, no additional funding, but it can be, the costs associated with it can be a allowable cost for child nutrition funds. Again, we would work through that with you. Number 19 really pertains to the state agency only, but I'll go ahead and let you know that because it ties into why we require you all to turn in waiver, that if you want to do a certain waiver, and why we have to approve it and what we have to go through. And it just goes on to say, what is the process for the state agency reporting of the required information for each waiver that is due to the secretary not later than 1 year after the date the state received the waiver? It goes on to just state that state agencies are required to track all the waivers that are being used. And so that's why there's continued follow-up that you all have to do if you want to use these waivers that they've issued. It's not because we enjoy paperwork, I assure you. It's additional work for us, just like it is for you, but none of these waivers have been blanket waivers. And so we've already gone through one reporting time frame, and it's pretty cumbersome. And they don't tell us what all we have to track. We're kind of shooting in the dark. And so because of that, we might be asking too much, but we found out with the first set of tracking we had to report, we probably didn't ask enough. And so some of that, some of the information they were asking us to report, we couldn't answer, believe it or not, but they didn't give us any guidelines as to what we had to track. So that we were just, again, every state had the same problem. So we did the best we could with what the information we had. Number 20, can the National School Lunch After School Snack Service operate simultaneously with SSO? The answer is yes. I do have a question regarding this question that I don't have an answer to yet, and I'll tell you what that is in just a second. The National School Lunch After School Snack Service, which operates during the regular school year, may operate simultaneously with the SSO under the nationwide waiver to allow the seamless summer option through school year 21-22. However, children may not receive more than the number of reimbursable meals allowed in each program for which they are eligible. For example, breakfast, lunch, and snack cannot all three be reimbursed under SSO. FNS recognizes that for the duration of the operations under the waiver, schools may be serving breakfast and lunch through SSO because that's allowable. Similar to the at-risk after-school meals component of Cacfp, schools that are offering non-congregate meals may meet the requirement to offer an enrichment activity with the National School Lunch Snack Service virtually or in other non-congregate ways. Sorry, I'm getting high. The question that I have posed back to USDA is, under the after-school snack program, and you choose to be an open site, can those unenrolled kiddos get the after-school snack program? I don't have an answer to that yet, so hold tight on that. That will remain to be seen. As soon as we know, you guys will know too. Number 21, may schools that were planning to conduct a Provision 2 base year during school year 21-22 and then elected to operate SSO calculate their NSLP SBP claiming percentages and still use school year 21-22 as their base year for Provision 2? And the answer is no. So nobody will be establishing a base year this year is basically what this is saying. You'll have to wait another year. But keep in mind, you're feeding your kids for free under SSO and getting the higher summer feeding reimbursement. So that pretty much solves that. Because you're probably getting, well, you will be getting a better reimbursement. So, okay, number 22 deals with direct certification. If an LEA is not currently providing meals through the National School Lunch Program, is it still required to continue direct certification activities? And the answer is yes. You still have to pull direct cert 3 times per year. And that was the same last year. You were supposed to do that last year as well. And our system allows you to be able to pull that. And this rest of this goes into talking about if some states don't have an automized direct cert system like we do. And so that goes into what they have to do that. So you do need to pull direct cert 3 times a year. 23, this one's dealing with other funding in the Department of Ed, and we really don't have any answers to this either. They're referencing an old memo that hasn't been updated yet, so I was a little concerned by this, but it goes on to state that to the extent that waivers, to the extent that the waivers granted by USDA affect programs in the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, also abbreviated ESEA, which is administered by the Department of Education, such as Title I, Part A, Title I, USDA and USDE, which is Department of Ed, are working together to provide information to stakeholders. It goes on to state that, yes, there's really, they are working together, but what we still don't have guidance on is, this really ties into the low income report is where I'm going with this. So we don't have any updated information. As we know right now, we are supposed to do the low income report like we normally do, but I have a feeling we might get some guidance otherwise. You do need to continue to collect free and reduced applications for your other funding purposes, because as of right now, that hasn't changed for title programs either. So the next several questions are section 3, and they start with question 24, and they're starting with talking about our Cacfp, which is Child and Adult Care Food Program. And so like I did tell you earlier, there'll be several in here that I will skip because they flat don't apply to you all. It's specific to child care centers. The ones that deal with at-risk are the ones I'll address with you all, because several of you on the call also do the at-risk program under Cacfp. So 24, can the at-risk after-school meals component of the Cacfp, operate simultaneously with SSO? And yes, it can, because we addressed this on the school side. Cacfp at-risk, which operates during the regular school year, may operate simultaneously with SSO during the implementation of the nationwide waiver 85, which is allowing seamless summer the entire school year of 21-22. However, under no circumstances may children receive more than the number of reimbursable meals allowed in each program for which they are eligible. Please refer to question 1 of this memo, which breaks down the eligibility by reimbursable program meal type. Let's see. 25, what does the meal times waiver allow specific to suspension of Cacfp meal service times during the public health emergency? Again, there's the nationwide waiver for mealtime requirements for school year 21-22, which is nationwide waiver 88. It allows us to let you all do, multiple meals. If you want to do a grab and go setting every day and give breakfast and lunch at the same time, that's what this is saying it's allowing for, the mealtime suspension of meal times. Okay, which 26, hold on, my things coming apart. Which components under Cacfp does the non-congregate waiver apply to? And it's talking about all child care programs are eligible under the non-congregate waiver, which include the child care centers, adult daycare centers, which we do have on our program, outside school care hours centers, at-risk after school care programs, family daycare homes, and emergency shelters. So the non-congregate waiver covers all our Cacfp programs. Can Cacfp sites, and this is specific to childcare, so I had to refresh my memory on that one. So I'm going to skip 27. It's talking specifically about our childcare centers and non-congregate, which they're allowed to do, and it goes into detail how they need to handle that. And 28 is the same way. It's talking about what they can do to provide meals for in a non-congregate setting to enrolled children in their facility. So that one I'm going to skip as well. This one is for 29, dealing with child care centers serving non-congregate who kids may be physically in care at the building versus on Sundays, and Sundays they're not. So that one doesn't apply to you all. And, I was going to flag these and the day got away from me. Under the non. Okay, 30, 31, 32, 33. All are just like the delivery of meals for school programs. So again, if you're going to deliver meals and you're doing the at-risk program, you'll need to reach out to us and we'll need to walk through that process with you. Because again, it references getting with the state agency about the process, talks about confidentiality and making sure it's okay to deliver. Can you deliver to someone that's not home? Yes, but then it needs to be a shelf-stable meal. Does the meal have to be shelf-stable? Not if you don't leave it out. So there's lots of logistics there. So that same questions that apply to the schools would apply here. They've just reworded them for centers. 34. Okay. Can CACFP, state agencies, and sponsoring organization add new centers and facilities during the COVID-19 emergency? And we are allowed to do that, and we've been doing that as needed. Anybody that needs to come on, we've been working through that with everybody. State agencies and sponsoring organizations can add new centers and daycare homes that are providing care during the coronavirus pandemic. However, state agencies and sponsoring organizations must complete all aspects of the application and approval process. That has not been waived this entire time. It is up to each state agency or sponsor to determine if they have the capacity to add centers and facilities based on their systems and other resources, such as the availability of inspections and licensing. So that hasn't changed. And then if, if you're going to come on the CACFP at risk to do suppers and snacks, 35 goes on to ask if our state agencies and sponsoring organizations required to conduct pre-approval reviews for the new CACFP centers and daycare homes during the coronavirus pandemic. And we are, so if you do, we have to come out and do an approval visit. That hasn't been waived. If we think it maybe needs to be done virtually somehow, we have that ability too, but we do like to do those in person as much as we possibly can. It really helps go through the process and the paperwork. Okay. 36, during COVID-19, how may we offer the enrichment activity if we are operating in a non-congruent setting for social distancing and safety? And it goes on to state that you can do a virtual enrichment or educational activity. It goes on to give you a link to their USDA's Team Nutrition, which has all kinds of activities that you can do. It also, I can't remember if this one or if it's the next one, or maybe the next one, talks about if they don't have the ability to do it virtually, you can always put an activity sheet in with the meal, and that can be handled that way as well. Because I think most people doing virtual learning at this point are set up with some sort of internet, but there's always that possibility. 37 is, may CACFP at-risk sites or sponsors that did not serve weekend meals prior to COVID-19 expand to provide weekend meals with a non-congregate enrichment activity? And the answer is yes. Federal regulations at 7 CFR 226(a)(b) state that CACFP at-risk centers that provide care for children on weekends during the regular school year may claim meals served on weekends. However, in making decisions about whether a program should operate on weekends, states, at-risk sponsors, and at-risk centers are encouraged to tailor their operations as to the need of the community. State agencies should review program operations with this in mind. In addition, the state agency must ensure that CACFP at-risk centers serving weekend meals also provide weekend at-risk enrichment activities, either in person or virtually on the weekend days for which meals are served. For example, if an at-risk center serves meals intended for consumption on Saturday, they must provide access to an enrichment activity for that meal given on Saturday. 38. For CACFP at-risk after-school care programs that are providing on-site care to children attending school virtually due to COVID-19, what meals may be served? Per federal regulations, 7 CFR 226(17)(a)(m), when school is in session, a CACFP at-risk meal or snack must be served after the child's school day. So at-risk is meant for after the child's school day. Schools that are in Schools that are operating virtually for some of their students are considered to be in session. Therefore, the after-school program would need to plan their meal service around the time of the virtual school day. Only a meal and or snack served after the virtual school day is over is reimbursable. FNS understands that programs caring for students attending school virtually would be in a position to serve meals during the school day. CACFP at-risk after-school care programs can work with their state agencies to explore operating CACFP as child care centers. We do have centers that do the at-risk. Under regular CACFP, the program would have more flexibility when in a meal and or snack could be served. However, only the maximum number of meals allowed under the program would be reimbursable. May CACFP at-risk after-school programs that are not caring for children on-site provide meals through an alternate meal service option? Yes. FNS recognizes that program operators need additional support and flexibility to continue safely serving meals to children as they work towards reopening. Under the non-congregate waiver, parent pickup waiver, at-risk programs may provide meal deliveries and grab-and-go meals. If applicable, any state agency meal service times may also need to be waived using waiver number 88 for the mealtime requirements. In all instances, some type of enrichment activity must be included. In addition, when meals are being provided for children that are not in on-site care at risk, suppers and or snacks may be distributed before the end of the school instructional day. For meal deliveries, the process outlined in question 14 through 18 must be followed, and that's the ones that you're going to reach out to us about if you're going to deliver. Please note that meal deliveries would be limited to children that participate in the at-risk after-school care program. Therefore, the program would need to collect appropriate information in order to make and track deliveries. So that's maintaining paperwork is vital, as it always has been. The next one is 40 is specific to child care centers. 41, how can CACFP at-risk centers track attendance to claim reimbursement for meals and snacks served to children participating virtually? At-risk centers approved to participate under the COVID-19 waivers continue to maintain attendance records as required by 7 CFR 226-17 a(o)(1). This includes daily attendance rosters, sign-in sheets, or with state agency approval, other methods that result in accurate recording of daily attendance. When children participate virtually, flexibility in using other methods may be needed. For example, if it would result in an accurate recording of daily attendance, the state agency may approve documentation of meal pickup or delivery as a record of a child's attendance. The state agency should work with at-risk centers and sponsors to develop appropriate methods to document attendance and conform with the program's COVID-19 safety policies. So if you're unsure how you might do that, we might need to discuss, but it is still required to maintain the attendance and sign-in sheets to ensure the meals are going to eligible children. Oh, this is the one I mentioned a minute ago about if a child doesn't have a electronic way to do an educational enrichment activity, you would need to make sure you have a way to give them an appropriate activity sheet or something to that effect. It also references the Team Nutrition website again, because they have resources on there that you can go to. 43, may CACFP at-risk centers provide extended care during the day, both school hours and after school hours, claim reimbursement for a breakfast and or lunch served in addition to one of the main meal and one snack followed for at-risk? And no, the answer is no. Centers that are only approved to operate under the CACFP at-risk component may not claim reimbursement for meals that exceed their program meal limitation of one meal and one snack per child per day. CACFP childcare centers that operate a separate daytime childcare and at-risk after-school program may be approved to claim reimbursement for up to 2 meals and 1 snack, or 1 meal and 2 snacks per child per day. That's again if you're a center also, not a school. This applies to children who attend just daytime. I won't even go into that. Okay, so 44 talks about daycare centers. So, okay. And then section 4 starts multi-program sponsors, and that is number 45. Can an SFA that participates in both SSO and CACFP at risk provide meals and snacks through SSO and CACFP at risk to each participant? Do the programs have to be operated at the same time or different sites? Multiple questions here. Can participants pick up multiple meals at once? So an SFA is approved. An SFA, if approved, to operate both programs may locate them at the same or at different sites. The SFA may allow children to pick up multiple meals from each program at one time. However, the maximum number of meals that may be offered to each child may not exceed the number of meals allowable by each program under SSO, which is up to 2 meals and 2 meals or 1 meal and a snack per child per day, and any combination except lunch and supper are allowed. Under CACFP at risk, up to 1 snack and 1 meal per child per day are allowed. If the SFA is operating both programs at the same time and all the meals for both programs are picked up at the same time, each program must keep accurate meal counts and claim only the meals served for that specific program. So you're going to have to keep your SSO records and your CACFP records separately. The state agency may approve a plan that includes pickup of meals for multiple days up to 1 week at a time. The state agency should consider the expected duration of the school closure and the capacity of the sponsor to execute such an approach effectively, including meeting state or local food safety requirements. That, again, if you're going to send meals home, you have to have food safety and all that fun stuff that you've had to do this entire time. May school-age children who are attending school virtually and who also are enrolled in attending childcare during the day receive meals through both CACFP and the school programs? And the answer is yes. Students enrolled in both school and childcare may receive meals through multiple child nutrition programs. However, state agencies must have an integrity plan with appropriate measures in place to ensure that program accountability is maintained and that program meal limits for the SVP and SLP, which includes SSO and CACFP, are not exceeded. Specific decisions regarding development and implementation of this plan are at the discretion of the state agency. However, the plan must include the processes the state agency is implementing. Section 5 goes into several questions on civil rights, which have been the same through this entire COVID timeframe, so we'll touch on those. Is the non-discrimination statement required on informational materials and websites? And it is. So if you're able to put that full non-discrimination statement, that's what needs to be on there. If the size of the material is too small to include the full statement, the material must at a minimum include the following statement in print in the same font size as the main text. And it is, quote, "This institution is an equal opportunity provider." On websites, the non-discrimination statement or link to it must be included on the home page of the program information. And then it goes on to talk about print material and what it needs to have, be it television, radio, or internet announcements. And they're normally short in duration. So the full NDS, which is the non-discrimination statement, must be provided to the media outlet, but does not need to be read or printed in its entirety. The single line short non-discrimination statement is sufficient to meet the requirement. Additionally, for programs that include a funding statement at the conclusion of the announcement, it's allowable for the short non-discrimination statement to follow the funding statement. And this is an example they gave. Pennsylvania WIC is funded by the USDA. This institution's an equal opportunity provider. Number 48, will meal pattern waivers affect a program operator's responsibility to make meal modifications for participants with disabilities? During this public health emergency, states and program operators are not relieved of their obligation to provide meal modifications for participants with disabilities. When planning a non-congregate meal service, state agencies and program operators should consider how individuals who require meal modifications will be identified and served. So you do have to make your meal modifications even during this time of COVID, and that's been the case this entire time. Do we need to have an And Justice for All poster on mobile routes for COVID-19 meal distribution? The And Justice for All poster must be prominently displayed in all facilities and locations that distribute program benefits or administer services. Due to COVID-19, if printed And Justice for All posters are not available for display, Paper copies may be distributed as necessary, and it could be including the use of the 2015 And Justice for All poster if the new 2019 posters have not been received, which they were out of there for a while and they weren't in their office to mail them out. So we did get special permission to print some extras because of what we were dealing with. Meals delivered from stationary vans or buses should display the And Justice for All poster. And then if you have a vehicle making door-to-door delivery drops at homes, then it does not. The And Justice for All poster does not need to be displayed, apparently. 50 for school year 21-22. Some schools are considering providing meals in the classroom rather than the cafeteria. In those situations, do the schools need to display an And Justice for All poster in every classroom? And the answer is no. It's not necessarily feasible or cost effective to have one in every classroom, but you need to have several displayed throughout the school, maybe on the office window and in a couple of the hallways that where food is. There might be a bulletin board or something. It needs to be there in a as much as possible because that's what it's for. 51, this is pertaining to the state. Do we need to provide free language assistance? And we do, and we have that ability if needed. And that's why if you've gone into CARS and started it, there's a few additional linguistic questions in the civil rights section this year that we had to add. We used to send out a linguistic survey towards kind of the mid time of the year because I would get that data from another department in the agency, and we would send out a survey. And the questions that were in that survey are now part of CARS, and everybody will complete that, and we can pull that data, and then anybody that has answered those accordingly, if we need to reach out to you all for additional linguistic help, we can do that. Auxiliary aids and services is providing auxiliary aids and services required, and it does go on to say, and this is dealing with the state, states are required to provide auxiliary aids and services for those who may need special assistance as long as doing so does not fundamentally alter the nature of the program. Planning for new sites, new methods of delivery should include considering how individuals with disabilities will be identified and served. State agencies should focus on determining how they can help persons with disabilities have equal access to the programs and not establishing additional criteria that participants must meet to receive an accommodation. That's the last question in the memo. So we're going to, oh no, I have a few more slides, hold on. Let me just finish up the slides. And if you do have questions relating to this memo, you could go ahead and put them in the chat. But I'm gonna finish up the slides, just kind of a briefly summarize a few things that we've had in the last call. And we do have to do administrative reviews of child nutrition programs this school year. We will review your SSO operations and answer other questions in the review. We're going to be getting together, the field staff, Dana and I, before too much longer and going through that process, because there will be a lot of questions that we don't answer this year because you're not taking, well, you are taking applications, but there's something in the waiver that we got in doing these reviews that we have to do differently. So there's just going to be a few that we have to know how to apply them for this year because things do look a little bit different. Procurement reviews will take place as well. So those are on track too. And next slide. Summer trainings, all kinds of summer trainings going on right now. Some are in person, which is exciting. Some, if we couldn't get an in-person location for your area, we're offering via Zoom. But I believe ABVM and cafeteria managers have already started. We may have already had a couple. I know we have some more this week. The link for those can be found in other documents in the CARS system. And then we're going to have other trainings throughout August, the rest of this month and in August, including topics of smart snack and professional development, after school snack program, fresh fruit and vegetable. We're going to have a food buying guide, production records, procurement, and at risk. So one thing COVID has done is it's expanded our training, and we've also even gone so far as to shorten some of them and do a few additional ones, but just focus on a topic at a time. Keep in mind, I mentioned when we first started that on Friday, we're going to have a virtual training to walk through the CARS application process via Zoom. So look for that. I believe, if I remember correctly, that is also in other documents in CARS to sign up for that. And keep going. We're going to have another call in a month. Do you all think, and you can answer this in the chat, do you all think we need to have one sooner than August 23rd? I'm not aware of any more guidance coming, but that doesn't mean it's not coming. Does anyone think we need to have one? I'm seeing a couple say if guidance comes out, okay, we could handle it that way. Edgar did put the link in the chat for the application walkthrough for Friday, just so you know. And Kendra, was there one more slide after that? These are the links to the recordings from the last 2 calls we've had. Okay, all right, so give me a second to get my chat up here and scroll back to it, or up towards the beginning. I know somebody put in there, Edgar put in there who's doing application approval for your county number with our phone numbers and emails. So I'm going to scroll past that. There might be in there again. Yes, yes, Jay Price, you're correct. That was dealing with the vendors canceling quotes and such. That's been a big issue. And I think it'll continue to be a big issue. Based on the calls that we were on for the virtual SNA, it could last a good year into next school year even, maybe. They're having labor shortages, truck driver shortages. So there's all kinds of problems that they're having. Cost of food is going up, as we all know, even at the grocery store where we shop, you know, it's just, I think it's just going to be a continued part of what we've been dealing with the last 18, 19, 20 months. So, okay, just to be clear, potable water is required for lunch, but not for breakfast. Yes, if you serve lunch in the cafeteria, in the classroom, potable water is required. If you're sending meals home to your virtual students, potable water is not required. Well, normally the memo is uploaded into CARS. I have also many a time just real fast been able to just Google SP, in this instance, SP 16-2021, and they pop up. So I have had to do that quickly when I struggle to get into the system faster than I could just Google something. So not a question in the slide, but I had another call. She received EBT card for only 1 of her 3 school kids. What do I need to do to get her an EBT card? Okay, so the PEBT cards have not been issued yet. So I don't know what this EBT card that you're referring to in here, but pandemic PEBT has not been issued yet. It's close, but we're not quite there. There will also be there'll be PEBT for summer as well, and not USDA. DHS is, I think they've just about got their plan to send to USDA for summer PEBT. So I think that's L. Durkee. I don't know what EBT is. I think that's another program outside of PEBT. All the acronyms can keep you crazy. Are you required to send out lunch applications this year? We are encouraging you to make lunch applications available. You don't necessarily have to send them out, but you know, that's tied to a lot of other funding. And if you mean send them out via mail, you don't necessarily have to mail them. They need to have a way to complete them on site somewhere, or maybe if you're a district that can do online. A lot of districts, once COVID came last school year particularly, they did a lot of online applications with the lunch application, and you can do that as well. No, any guidance on not getting them back because we already served their kids for free. USDA is well aware of that. And you can offer incentives, but it has to be for everybody. If you can get someone in the community to donate gift cards or a Walmart gift card, or I know over the years I've heard school districts have had bikes donated to try to get them to submit a bike, some sort of incentive to get them to return those. But no, unfortunately, I don't have a good answer to that, but it's a problem that's going on nationwide that we're hearing on calls. If you're serving kids in the cafeteria, I fully recommend using your point of sale system, sorry, versus a tally sheet for in-person. Now, if you don't have the technology to be able, if you're doing grab and go to do that outside, then yes, potentially you would be using a tally sheet outside, but in person, I recommend just being able to click as they come through a free meal. You thought you heard in a previous Zoom call that for that coming school year, we were not allowed to serve younger unenrolled siblings. I didn't know prior to this memo of the open and closed. So you might have heard more guidance was coming. On this call, you stated we are able to serve younger siblings that are not enrolled. Okay, so let me clarify that. If you apply in CARS under SSO as an open site, you have the ability to serve siblings that are not enrolled in the district. If you as a district decide to be a closed enrolled site, you would not be serving the siblings of enrolled students. You would only be serving the students that are enrolled in your district, which could include your virtual students that attend your district's virtual learning option because they are enrolled in your district. I hope that helps. Lisa, in open sites, you said we could feed siblings that are enrolled. Does that mean we can't feed kids who are siblings? No, again, open site versus closed site. Open, you can feed kind of like you've been feeding all along. You can feed the community 18 and under. Whereas closed is only enrolled students. It's a district decision, and it will be different from district to district, I believe. Carrie, your question says what time? What were you referring to?
That may have been to Edgar's. He answered that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Must be the call on Friday. Okay, that makes sense now. EBT, no, PEBT have not been sent out yet. I honestly do not know what EBT is. I mean, it's obviously electronic benefits system, just like PEBT, but I don't believe it's tied to our programs in any way. But I know PEBT is still coming. Is the press release available yet? Do you mean the one that you're required to do every year with CARS? The public release, that is in CARS, that you can print that off and submit that. Teresa, hope that answers your question. Okay, we'll have a call sooner if we need to, or if anything changes that you need to be aware of, that's how we'll handle that then. Otherwise, it'll be the August 23rd call. Edgar, that's the post for the link for the Friday Zoom call. And it is at 9. Only if there are changes. Where is the form for the on-site reviews for SSO? You're not finding it. Should be on CARS in the it'll be in the child nutrition manual that's uploaded into the different sections. And SSO is under compliance. I can't, compliance section. Somebody help me out. Kendra, am I right? Is it compliance? I'm drawing a blank, but it is in the manual. And so are the on-site forms to do lunch and breakfast programs. So, okay, if anything changes. The PowerPoint always gets posted in CARS, Sherry. or should we only have guidance? For a short week, we have planned 3 virtual school days during the year. Can we offer meals for these days in SSO? Yes, if they are virtual days and learning is taking place and it's part of the accredited school day, even though it's virtual, yes, you would be able to do meals those days. Krista, still a little confused. If I am not using at risk and I claim breakfast and lunch on SSO, that is correct. You would claim after school snack on NSLP because it is an NSLP. It's part of NSLP, the after school snack program. Okay, Linda, I'm glad you asked that. Adults that eat and how much do you charge them this year? Last week, we received part of the rates that normally come out in July, and we've received nothing since. The part we don't have is the part that would calculate what to feed adults. We don't have the commodity cash in lieu rate yet, which is tied to that. So we're still holding out hope that maybe we get them this week, but we can't do anything with the Schedule B until we get the rest of the rates. I apologize. In CACFP at risk, can we do non-congregate supper meals and virtual meal pickup if we provide enrichment activities and mark their names on a roster? Yes. The enrichment, yes, you can, Lisa. Rates, hopefully very soon. I was really hoping I'd have them by last week after I got the first initial batch, but I didn't. I got childcare rates. And then, like I said, the cash in lieu rate, and even though we're not operating national school lunch, we still have to have those rates for the Schedule B, so we're still waiting. Weekend meals are not allowable under SSO. They are allowable under CACFP. Edgar put the seamless summer review in the chat. And told us where it could be found. It is in other documents under the, now I knew that was there. I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to say it. It's under the FY21 seamless summer options section in other documents on cars. Off the P. I left off the P. Our summer feeding will end on 7:30, and we will begin SSO when school starts on 8/12. The Sfsp funds, we end on 7:30 with cannot be used for SSO. They can, Tammy. Child nutrition funds, yes, they can be used interchangeably for programs. That's acceptable. I hope that helps. Yes, the PowerPoint will be available on cars. Our schools give a raffle ticket for application packets returned, and then prizes donated by the community are given out. We get more back this way, but never all. I would agree with that. You probably do get that. That's just an incentive. It cannot be required, but it can be, and you can't require them to return it. It can't be tied to enrollment in any way, shape, or form. We've had that happen before, and we get a lot of phone calls about that. So just know we do end up hearing about that because a lot of parents don't want to complete that form. They may honestly not qualify or need it, and they get very angry when it's tied to their enrollment packet or anything else, and it can't be. Okay, Linda, if online application for free and reduced, do we need to print those and only post FAQs on the website? Is there a letter requesting application to be returned for school explaining importance of getting those back? You can attach a letter to it. In that letter to household and all the Q&A in that form, that multiple page packet, it also asks for meal prices. And this year we've had a lot of calls. What do we put there? You just put 0 because there's no meal charge or price this year. It's free. Teresa, where last week it wasn't available. It's in the checklist when you go in to do your application and renewal. It's in that checklist, and I'm drawing a blank on what it's called. Darn it. There's two. I can visualize them.
Are you thinking of the non-traditional?
Yes, there's a non-traditional policy statement and the non-pricing CEP provision policy statement. And that's the one everyone will use this year because we've made a little statement in there that due to COVID, meals will be served free. It's in there. It's in the checklist and you can print it. And that's
Edgar said he thought it's going to be available on Friday.
Oh, sorry.
I
Sorry.
didn't know that
It's in
either.
there. It's just not available. I apologize. Okay. Okay, so that answer. Okay, Julie, thank you. That probably is it. Summer EBT through the Chickasaw Nation for free. Okay. Thank you for jogging my memory. That probably is it. That's a good possibility that that's what that is. Thank you, Julie. And Julie, it was nice to meet you. I finally got to meet Julie. I did attended all of the Project Fresh farm to school trainings, and it was a lot of fun. We had one in Ulaga, we had one in Shakota, and we had one in Atoka, and I participated in all those. Some of you even saw my cooking skills put to test. But Julie was in Atoka, and so I finally got to meet her, and hey to everybody else out there, Bray Doyle, and I think we had some people from Enid show up at one of them, and Hugo. I don't want to miss anybody at Atoka, obviously Shakota. I apologize, but I might be missing one or two districts, but it was good to meet you guys. Let's see. Now, Deborah White Church says EBT is a card parents use to check. Oh, okay. Well, there is another EBT, but you're right. That is one form of EBT. It's for assistance to parents who get childcare assistance. Deborah, you're right. But I believe what Julie's referring to is through the Chickasaw, and it's a card for those benefits for tribal. Yes. Let's see, was a statement about filling out a non-public release form. Is there a reason a district would fill this out? Well, if it's the public release statement is required to be done every year, and it's part of the CARS checklist, if that's what you're referring to. And somebody's saying C108 is the on-site reviews in the manual. Thank you for looking that up. Carrie, SSO is in the left side box in the application section, but the release is not there yet. Thank you for clarifying. I apologize. I thought it was. You cannot serve weekend meals through SSO, but you can through CACFP at risk. So we cannot submit the app without the adult rates for the Schedule B. You are correct. That is our holdup right now. And we know a lot of you have finished everything in that application and renewal, but are holding out because of the Schedule B, and we're in the same boat. We can't do anything until we have that too. You're correct. When will the direct cert and the wave be ready? The wave is down. They do it every year this time. They shut it down for like a 2-week time period, and I believe it opens back up next week. There will be, when you get into the wave and direct cert and all that, there'll be a note when it does open back up. In fact, we may even end up sending out an alert when we know that that's open again. I think right now it says the 25th, if I remember correctly. Yes, I recommend using your point of service system instead of tally sheets when feeding the kids in person in the cafeteria. And there's an attachment, is the attachment E. Edgar has put in there also. Okay, I'm to the end of the chat. Does anybody have any other questions for us? I kind of thought today's call might take a little bit longer. Yes, you are to fill out the non-pricing press release, because this year everybody basically technically is serving for free, which is considered non-pricing because of the waivers. So anybody else? Okay, well, I'm not going to keep everybody for no reason. No, I don't have an answer to determination letters. Let me, great, I'm glad you reminded me. I'm writing that down. Okay, I'll see what I can find out about that. Okay. Teresa, somebody else just asked that, and I am going to find out if you all have to send those determination letters out. I don't have an answer back from USDA, but I will definitely do that. Okay, one last call for questions. Going once, going twice. You're more concerned about, yeah, DC letters. Okay. Yeah, once the wave opens up, you'll be able to do that. All right. Thank you, guys, for all. Kendra put in there that the first Zoom ABVM is tomorrow. So if you're interested in attending one via Zoom, tomorrow's the day. Kendra, 9:30.
Yes, 9 a.m.
Okay. All right, you guys continue to enjoy your, yes, you can do Zoom instead of in person if you are more comfortable with that. Yes, that's why we're offering. Some people want it in person. Kendra, you want the registration? You want to say something real quick about that?
If you go to CARS into other documents under training upcoming, we have the ABVM and cafeteria managers link, so you can see all that are available. And again, we've only had one ABVM and one cafeteria manager, but we have 2 Zoom ones going on, and then we have a lot of in-person. You can still sign up. So please do that. There's also other topics. There's just a lot going on. They're in person, they're via Zoom, and then we also have it's going to be probably next week, and it will also be in OSDE Connect or OK Edge. So you have several ways to get your ABVM done this year.
Great. All right. Okay. Thanks for all your hard work and continued hard work. If you have questions, let us know. And we'll plan on August 23rd at 1:30 for this call again, unless we need to get with you sooner, and we will definitely do that. All right, everybody, take care, and we'll see you soon. Talk soon. August 23rd or before, maybe. Have a great rest of your summer. Bye, everybody.